if you realize that the direction of world history changed in your lifetime? The shocks in London will be bigger than the shocks in Berlin. This morning, I want to reflect on how changes, not only in the regulatory environment, but also in the macroeconomic environment, pose a challenge to the historic standing of London as a financial centre. I want to take you back in time to set the question in some kind of historical perspective. Nearly 140 years ago, Walter Bagehot published his great book, Lombard Street. Lombard Street is by far the greatest combination of economical power and economical delicacy that the world has ever seen. The bankers' deposits of London are many times greater than those of any other city, and the English money is borrowable money. Our people are bolder in dealing with their money than any continental nation. Sound familiar? Concentration of money in banks is the principal cause which has made the money market of England so exceedingly rich. In Lombard Street, in all but the rarest times, money can always be obtained upon good security or upon decent prospects of probable gain. In this constant and chronic borrowing, Lombard Street is the great go-between. In Lombard Street, Bagehot depicts the working of a complex financial system. What's really impressive about the book is that he understands every part of the market. And central to his analysis is the insight that the Bank of England has become, as a result of historical evolution, the single most important institution, not just in the London financial system, but in the global financial system. As you read Lombard Street, you realize just how far back the importance of the City of London as a financial centre goes. But you also see that some of the problems we face today, when London once again has become a financial centre for the world, are problems that were familiar to the Victorians. Here's an absolutely crucial passage from an early edition of the book. And you'll realize as I read this just how helpful historical insights can be. But in exact proportion to the power of this system, wrote Bagehot, is its delicacy. I should hardly say too much if I said its danger. Only our familiarity blinds us to the marvelous nature of the system. There never was so much borrowed money collected in the world as is now collected in London. Of the many millions in Lombard Street, infinitely the greater proportion is held by bankers or others on short notice or on demand. That is to say, the owners could ask for it all any day they please. In a panic, some of them do ask for some of it. If any large fraction of that money really was demanded, our banking system and our industrial system too would be in great danger. One of the remarkable things about 2007 was that it saw the first bank run in Britain since the publication in 1873 of Bagehot's Lombard Street. What a difference 5 or 6 years have made to our perception of the City of London. We've gone from feeling overconfident about the benefits of financial globalization to feeling distinctly fearful about what happens to London in the wake of the biggest financial crisis since the Great Depression. In today's financial times, there are nervous mutterings about just what our Prime Minister may or may not have done to disadvantage the City of London in its relations with the European Union. But I want you to understand that in my view, the biggest challenge to the City of London's future does not come from Europe or from European regulation. It comes from the fundamental shift that we are witnessing in the global balance of economic power. In a whole range of different areas, the City of London punches well above its weight as a financial center. Financial centers, this was true in Bagehot's day too, do a lot of things. They cover a lot of different activities. And what's really interesting about London is the fact that it does so many of these different things so well. So it's not just about cross-border bank lending, it's also about the foreign equities business, it's about foreign exchanges, it's about the derivatives business, which certainly didn't exist in Bagehot's day, it's about shipping insurance, it's about the international bond market, and it's about the hedge fund business. And when you stack it up against the competition, it's still the case, despite the impact of the financial crisis, that London really is the most comprehensive, full-service financial center in the world. The question is, can it hang on? We are living through the end of 500 years of divergence. The divergence put the West, led in fact by England, ahead of everybody else by an astonishing margin. So that by the 1970s, when I was a teenager, the average Westerner was between 15 and 25 times richer than the average Easterner. What has happened since the late 1970s is that the rest of the world has downloaded the killer apps that made the West so rich. The argument of the book is that there were 6 things that set the West apart from the rest. There was the legitimacy of competition in both politics and economics, the scientific revolution, the rule of law based on private property rights, modern medicine, which more than doubled life expectancy, the consumer society without which there's no point having an industrial revolution, and the work ethic. For most of the last 500 years, those 6 things were essentially monopolized by Western civilization. And interestingly enough, London was one of the first places in the world to combine all 6. In our time, this has ceased to be true. The 6 killer apps have been downloaded by Asians. The Japanese were the first to do this. In our time, though, the real story has been that the Chinese have downloaded the killer apps. And by downloading those different institutions and ideas, they have changed the direction of world history. And now the story of world history is the Great Reconvergence. After half a millennium, the rest are gaining very rapidly on the West. If you look at the International Monetary Fund's most recent projections, what they say is that the United States will cease to be the world's largest economy in 4 years' time. 4 years' time. In 2016, China's gross domestic product will overtake that of the US on a purchasing power parity basis. So we are living through something astonishing. The United States has been the biggest economy in the world since the early 1880s when it overtook Britain. And now, it's about to be overtaken by China. We have bounced our way out of the Great Depression through a combination of massive fiscal and monetary stimulus, plus considerable help from China. But we're still pretty much in a depression. The market's actually where the Great Depression of the 1870s took US equities back in the late 19th century. I think we're still in a depressed economy in the Western world. And I think that the burdens of debt, both public and private, in nearly all the great economies of the developed world, will keep that depression going for a considerable period of time. I would say for at least another 5 years. As we will discuss in the panel, the existential crisis of the Eurozone poses major problems for the UK. Why is that? Well, the reason is that the world's financial system is far more integrated as a network than it was back in the 1980s, when most of you were getting started in your financial careers. Here's some really nice network analysis that I saw recently in a super nerdy paper on complexity. This is the global financial system, 1985, 95, 2005, 2008. What you see here is the emergence of an incredibly complex financial network. And it's a complex network in the strict sense of complexity. There are tightly coupled nodes. And tightly coupled nodes make for instability in a complex system. Some of you will have studied complexity. If you come from a natural sciences background, you'll know what I'm talking about. Guess which the biggest hub in the network is. That's London. We're the center of the global financial nervous system. If the complex system tips over the edge of chaos, if perturbation causes it to go critical, it's here that the biggest trauma, the biggest upheaval will happen. The shocks in London will be bigger than the shocks in Berlin. Put together all the things that I've just told you. The great shift from the West to the rest, the extraordinary vulnerability of London to the European crisis despite our non-membership of the euro. You realize that the biggest rival or rivals to London as a financial center are not the other European financial markets. Now, the challenge comes from Asia. It comes from Hong Kong. So the Z-Yen Global Financial Centers Index is another really good measure. And they rate financial centers by a whole bunch of different metrics. Here's the outcome. Massive convergence. Go back to the beginning of that index, which is their first study 10 years ago. Massive difference then between New York and Asian financial centers in terms of institutional quality. And now look, the Asians have all significantly improved their acts. The only question right now is which of the Asian markets will be the London of the 21st century?